you can have great people, and we have great people, but I put together some stuff on a screenplay, and I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not a writer. I'm not you put down this is the story. So I had to get someone that was a writer, a Chicago guy, someone that was really good. And sure enough, I know that Sherry Cowan was down in Florida. I said, she goes, I got this guy. He's a great writer. I've looked at everything he is. Why don't you call him and see if you can meet with him? And so what I did was I called him up. We went and had coffee. He goes, God, this is a great story. I want to do it. I want to write the book. I want to write the screenplay. And I think one of the funnier stories is after we were working on it, one day we went to a meeting and we're there about 15 minutes and we were supposed to be about a half an hour, 45 minutes. He goes, you know, Gary, I'm sorry, I have to go. Somebody called me up and asked me if we could have a meeting with me because he wanted to adapt his comic. And I thought that was a little strange, but he goes, I'm going to go and meet him anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet the author, the best-selling author of The Walking Dead, an incredible man, and thanks for standing me up, Jay Bonansinga.
Yeah, Jay!
I'd like Jay to say a few words to it. Let's hear it for Jay. We want Jay to hear it.
It's an honor to be here tonight. It's an honor to be part of this project. It's an honor to have Brett as part of this. Yeah. Brett doesn't know this. I don't think he does. But where are you? There you are. You and I. You could make an argument that you and I started at the same company. Because my first deal in LA was with a company called August Entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the first day I was there, meeting with Gregory Cascante. Yeah. It was just Brett Leonard, Brett Leonard, Brett Leonard. He was, it turns out, I'm going to tell the crowd proudly that it turns out what he was saying about you was true. He was saying, you got to check out this film. He's like the American Dario Argento. And it was true. And I'm not just saying that because the guy's standing right here and would beat me up if I said it. It's true. You know, The Dead Pit. Yes. I watched it immediately. Lawnmower Man. Thank you for joining us. This is an honor to have you. And I will say, just briefly, I want to make a few brief remarks, if it's okay. When I first met Gary, and it took meeting him for the hook to be sunk into me. I know there are people here tonight that know exactly what I'm talking about. The minute I met Gary, I heard his theme song. I saw the camera move. I saw the set design of him walking down State Street, you know. I saw, you know, Rush Street. And it was so fascinating to me, and the image and music really carried through. And I really find it ironic, and I will say this tonight with love, one of the most trustworthy people in Chicago that I know, one of the most loyal, charismatic, charming, friendly, who I adore, turns out he was a federal prisoner. He's going to his next country. I mean, that is Chicago. That is Chicago.
Let's hear from my city. Come on.
This is the epitome. He couldn't be here tonight, but Gary Gale is also. Just kidding.
That's a Chicago.
No, I want to, if it's okay, I want to read a very brief excerpt from a book that Gary and I have been flirting with and tweaking and fiddling with for years. And I just thought that I would read a little bit so you could really understand how the hook was sunk into me, and I think will be sunk into not only all of you, but viewers when this film is made. I just want to say one more thing by way of introduction. Yes, it's true. I am fortunate enough to be working on The Walking Dead, books. I'm on my 6th one now. It's been almost 5 years. Thank you. Thank you. There is a cheap way to get applause for anybody who works for Robert Kirkman. Yeah, but it's fabulous for me. Like Brett, I started in horror, and I have a family in horror. And this is a particular kind of horror, Chicago, The Machine. But I do get up every day, and I ruminate about, I dream about, I think about, I write about, these hideous, undead, flesh-eating, cannibalistic monsters. But enough about the Chicago City Council. Thank you. I want to read this excerpt. I think it's self-explanatory after that intro. This is from the book, Mr. Chicago. Autumn 1979. The assholes in the puke green Ford saw me long before I saw them. I was too distracted on that blustery morning by my own bad self to notice anybody following me. As I strode along the promenade of that bustling, badass thoroughfare known as Rush Street, I was too busy watching my reflection ghosting across storefront windows alongside me to notice anything out of the ordinary. And damn it, my reflection said it all. I was cool. I was cool McCool, man. And nobody, not even a couple of goons in a Ford, were going to ruin the year I was having. It was typical autumn weather for Chicago that day, gray, raw, and cold enough to freeze the tits off a brass monkey. So the dispositions of passers-by were not exactly sunny. On top of that, it was nosing toward high noon, so I was in a hurry. But that didn't keep me from admiring my patented power strut reflecting back at me off those endless glass facades of upscale taverns and trendy boutiques selling incense and overpriced Indian rugs. For those readers unfamiliar with Rush Street, or Chicago, or the 1970s, or me for that matter, Gary I'm talking about, of course, let me set the stage a little bit. It's important that you know who you're dealing with here, not only for the story to make sense, but also for what happened that day when that dented Ford shit wagon finally pulled up to the curb and flagged me over. Slow the film down a little bit. So now I'm sauntering along Rush in Scorsese slow-mo. That's kind of what it felt like that day, like a dream. Now fading the soundtrack. And no, I'm not talking about the Bee Gees or John Travolta in his disco suit. I'm talking about that slinky, sexed-up bass line from Superfly. Curtis Mayfield with a sizzling cymbal track on top. Like Isaac Hayes, like Shaft. That's me in my cocaine white polyester. Dress shirt the color of Bailey's Irish Cream. Psychedelic tie as white as a slab of porterhouse. And then there's the baby face that everybody's mother wanted to pinch and everybody's girlfriend wanted to kiss. Some folks called me the kid because I looked 10 years younger than my age. On that brisk fall day, edging toward 30, I still had the air of a teenager. With my clean-shaven mug, my long Adonis curls tossing in the lake winds, my .357 Magnum tucked away inside my coat, I was the Mac Daddy of Michigan Avenue. Part of an invisible protectorate. I was the way money got from one side of town to the other. I was the way things got fixed. I was the pipeline, the grease, the juice, the boodle. And right then I was smiling from ear to ear, not a care in the world, right up until the moment I paused to light a mini. I was a block away from my destination as I rooted out the Panatella and sparked it with my Zippo. I wasn't a big smoker, but I would watch Roswell's lawyer, Richie, who always had one of those little cigars going in his mouth, and I liked the way it looked. Macho and eccentric at the same time. Not that I needed any special effects, but what the hell, right? So I'm lighting up when I feel a presence slide up beside me out of the corner of my eye. The way that unmarked Ford lurched over and then kicked its brakes like punctuation, those big black walls brushing the curb, it had county written all over it. I figured it was maybe somebody from the sheriff's office dropping by to shoot the shit with a former employee. But then I looked up and I saw the front and back doors swing open like a synchronized ballet. I knew this was probably not going to be a social call. There were two of them. One emerging from the front, one from the back, both dressed in dark suits, dark ties, and dark demeanors. The one from the back approached, looking all businesslike, showing some kind of ID that I barely got a look at. FBI, Mr. Galt, or is it Gale? We'd like you to come downtown and have a little chat with us. Now this all happened so quickly I barely had time to even register a few cursory observations. They were both young, maybe even younger than I, definitely young for Phoebes, and the way they were gesturing toward the open back door, like a couple of bellhops at a fine hotel, kind of lulled me into an immediate sense of, what the hell? So I shrugged, I tossed the stogie, and without saying a word, I climbed into that foul-smelling sedan. There are moments in life when the needle on the record suddenly skips. The film running through the projector suddenly jams. For some reason, at times like these, your senses narrow down to a single image, some trivial detail that burns itself into your brain, an image that you just know is going to haunt your dreams for the rest of your life. I can't explain why I gazed back at that sidewalk as that battered Ford whisked me away. Maybe it had something to do with the realization that I had gotten into a car with a couple of guys I didn't know. Guys who had merely flashed a couple of chintzy ID tags that could have been gotten from a box of Cracker Jacks. They could be button men, freelancers working for the Chicago outfit, anything. But for whatever reason, I found myself staring out that back window at the sidewalk where I stood a moment ago, the spot receding into the distance. I could see that little cigarillo where I had tossed it. It was smoldering away there on that cracked cement, just like my life. Everything going up in smoke.